Hey everybody, my name is Mike and welcome to Total Dragon, the series where we recap and reread Eric Larson's epic Savage Dragon title. Today I'm just going to kind of talk about where I'm at in regards to the first 7 issues from what I've read and kind of like my thoughts and kind of like my take on it or what have you. As I said before, initially when I started this, I think that Larson's Savage Dragon, out of all the Image founders, is the one that has probably been the most consistent and done the best, and it definitely is the one that has put out the most issues. You look at Spawn, yeah, he's hit 300, but I don't think Todd McFarlane has drawn a whole issue and God knows how long. Um, a lot of the other books didn't do as well as they thought they would. I think Rob Liefeld's Youngblood has a total of 20 issues or something like that. With all the companies he's been at, he's only got 20 issues made. Um, Shadowhawk had a series of miniseries. Cyberforce, Wildcats, whatever. Eric Larson's Dragon still chugging along at 251 issues, and he's the sole writer and artist. So, like I said, it's definitely the best book, I think. But this is kind of like enough being said about that. This is like a recap of everything we've seen so far and how I think about it. Um, Really, the first 7 issues, what I've seen him do so far is basically lay groundwork, establishing Chicago is overrun, the police force is understaffed. It's kind of a lot like Gotham City, but instead of it being, human gangsters, it's people with superpowers running the whole show. And they don't have a Batman. They've got a handful of vigilantes that we've seen. Mighty Man, Super Patriot were probably the most powerful of those vigilantes in the Vicious Circle. They kind of took care of them really early on in the series, although we have seen Mighty Man come back. And we've seen Super Patriot return as kind of like some type of cyborg type guy. Um, they got Star. He's a vigilante, but he's human. So he's basically a glorified acrobat that shoots out ninja stars. Um, but so Larson has really established that the city is overrun and in bad shape, and that's where Dragon comes in. So he's kind of introduced Dragon as being this guy who is very powerful, has a sense of right and wrong. He's definitely not one of the corrupt super freaks, even though he's been offered the chance to be a part of them. He's turned it down. So we've seen him, fight and fight and fight these villains and not stop fighting and not back down or compromise who he is. Um, but we've also seen it kind of wear and tear on him, like it's driven him to drink. We see him in one issue. He's like propped up in the bar, just getting wasted because his girlfriend, who may or may not have been incredibly young and underage and inappropriate for the older dragon, got blasted by some nut job when she went to open the door. So that really wore him down, and the fact that he's the only superpowered guy is really wore him down too. So we kind of see him, being this guy that, fights for what he believes in, doesn't compromise, doesn't back down, but at the same time, we've kind of seen him, fall on hard times as well, which is like most people do. They have two sides. Um, you know, can't just be one dimensional. We've seen a lot of his supporting cast, um, cops, good and bad. We've seen a lot of. I remember the one. I think it was the Image Zero issue where he was introduced to his fellow police officers, and some of them were not very happy with the idea of having what they called a freak on the force. So his place on the police force is kind of, I think a lot of them really appreciate him being there, but then at the same time, there's probably some resentment from some of his other officers there. We've seen, I think her name is Alex Wild. She's been probably the closest thing he has to a friend on the police department. Although he was brought onto the force by Frank Darling. Frank revealed that he's been in the Vicious Circle's back pocket for a while. So Dragon kind of finally talked him into telling him what was wrong, and Frank revealed that he, is responsible for everything that's happened so far in regards to Dragon, as far as the motives to get him to join up with the Chicago Police Department. So we've seen that, and in the latest issue, Frank and Dragon went to see the Overlord and finally take the fight to him, which did not end well for both parties involved, Frank and Dragon. So that's where we're at in regards to that. A lot of the other characters we've been introduced to, Barbaric, Ricochet, Mighty Man has came back. There's a second Mighty Man now after the original one died. They were Rapture. She was another one. She was a hooker that had electrical powers. She joined the police force. And a lot of these freaks didn't want to work with the police force and still have to wear their uniform and could only use some of their powers and some of their abilities, but still be expected to fight crime efficiently. They basically said, hey, this is not for us. We can't do our job with these rules. So we're going to split off and do our own thing, which is where Larson's spin-off title, Freak Force, comes into play. So we've seen him introduce those characters. Let's see, what else have we seen? I think the other biggest thing that we've seen, or that my observation is from just these first 7 issues, is there's a lot happening. And it's kind of reflected in the reviews I do, in which there's really a lot being thrown at the reader, all in one issue. You'll have new characters, new faces. The villains just are so wild looking, man. Like the guy Dung and the Shrew, Cyberface, double header, a guy with two faces or whatever you want to call it. Larson, he's just creating all these characters and just including them into the book. And it's wild to see that much imagination and putting pencil to paper and just, throwing these guys out there at 2 or 3 a issue. He's putting them out there. So really that's been the big thing for these first 7 issues, is the groundwork for this whole universe has been laid. We've seen the Ninja Turtles. We've seen, a guy shoot poop out of a cannon on his hand. We've seen like a rock star guy who's also a vigilante undercover. We've seen corruption on the police force. We've seen a freak locked in a basement and chained because her parents were embarrassed of who she was. So Larson, he's really thrown a whole lot at us in these first 7 issues. And that's the other thing is, at the beginning of this book, the Vicious Circle was the main villain. That was the organization that was running the whole thing. And here we are at the end of issue 6, and the whole of issue 7 is them taking the fight to him. So they're taking the fight, or Dragon is taking the fight to the big boss right out the gate, any other book that you probably wouldn't see that till like issue 25 or something, and they're not even a year in to this book, and they've already Savage Dragon and Overlord have already clashed. So that's another thing that I think is really cool that you don't see. You don't see the arch nemesis and the villain and the hero of the book throwing hands that soon. And if you did, it definitely doesn't end with the hero taking a nosedive off a skyscraper and going head or torso first into some giant spike on a building and getting impaled. But I think all of this just kind of lets us know that Larsen is just saying, hey, anything can happen in this book. Your hero dragon, he is not going to make it through these fights unscathed. He gets thrown off the building. Before that, he had his hand shot off by Overlord. So I think Erik Larsen, he's letting us know that in this book, anything can happen. And with the rate of characters he's introducing, the rate of new characters he's introducing, he's not afraid to kill some of these guys off. So that, that's something that you don't see in the big two. Marvel, DC, that these characters they introduce, they're not going to be killed off as fast as Larsen is doing, is introducing and sometimes taking these guys out, or if not taking them out, it'd be like one guy's getting his hand cut off or another one's getting poisoned. So anything can happen. Frank got vaporized. So that's really the biggest my biggest takeaway from these first 7 issues is creativity, introducing characters, establishing that in Chicago anything can happen to any of these characters at any time. And I think one of the things Erik Larsen has said about Savage Dragon is it's a little more grown up than the Marvel books, but not as pretentious as the Vertigo books. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. And you can definitely see a lot of that in the 7 issues we've read. You can see a lot of that, and it's a lot of action going on too. There's not a page after page of like, I hate to kind of pick on it, but like you would see some of the Vertigo books, the character like Sandman or Death, just having these huge speeches or whatever, and you don't see a whole lot, if any, in Savage Dragon, which there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy Neil Gaiman's stuff. Death, The High Cost of Living is a great miniseries. And Sandman, critically acclaimed for a reason. Tons and tons of people love it. But like I said, he said this is a middle ground between Marvel and Vertigo, and he's right. It really is. It's something that if you've been reading comics for a long time, then you kind of want something that's a little bit more, but still kind of grounded in superheroes, capes, and people with powers and stuff, then that's what he's offering you, in Savage Dragon. And the best thing about it is he can do all this stuff because they're his characters, and he's not on the hook to any type of business or company to make sure he puts the toys back in one piece, so to speak. So that's my thoughts on the first 7 issues. A whole lot of groundwork being laid, introduction of characters, and nobody is off limits as far as stuff happening to them. And the prime example is issue 7, the end of it. The whole book was nothing but like splash pages, like Superman 75, where he fights Doomsday, and it ends basically with Savage Dragon not looking like things are going to be good for him. He's been thrown off a building and impaled on some type of giant space needle. So that's where Larson has left us off. So it's an exciting book. I wish I could dedicate more time to reading it. Like I said on the last video, it's been about 2 months since I've done one of these. So I'm trying to get back on track. They're super fun to do. I enjoy talking about Dragon and everything that Larson's doing. Let's see, what else is there? I know I'm rambling a little bit. Maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot. But I think that's going to be it. I think we're going to get back to issue 8. We'll see how that picks up, and we'll see what Erik Larson has in store for us for the next phase of Dragon's life. All right, you guys take care, and we'll see you next time. Later.